This is Rackham Vale, a mini sandbox setting designed for old school essentials, but usable for all old school kind of games, easily adaptable, and maybe even more modern systems as well. And it's inspired by the work of Arthur Rackham, so it has a wonderful fairy tale quality to it, slightly nightmarish elements as well, which is great, full of magical creatures, loads of adventure hooks, and a really nice setting. Crowbar Creative offered to send me a free copy of the book, but I bought the PDF because I thought it looked really cool and I really enjoyed reading it. And I think it could work really nicely for a group game. Don't know about solo yet. I'll try that out. So I was lucky enough today to talk to the writers, and let's see what they had to say. Well, I was very surprised and pleasantly surprised. This afternoon I was listening to the soundtrack.
Hey!
And it was so good.
It's so good.
And it was very atmospheric.
Yeah.
Some bits were genuinely full of tension and unsettling, and because it does have a nightmarish quality, Rackham Vale, doesn't it, in certain areas. And that led me on to Craig's solo stuff.
Okay, great.
Which I thought, this is so cool. And the Dulcimer, you composed for the Dulcimer.
That's right, yeah.
That's so awesome. How did you get into that?
Oh, good question. I had a friend who moved into a place in California, and the tradition is when you move out of a place, you leave a gift for the person who's moving in, even if you don't know them.
Mm-hmm.
And his gift was a dulcimer, but he was not
wow.
really a musician sort of person, so he gave it to me.
That's awesome. I've only come across one once in a shop that used to exist in a city near me, and I just thought, what even is that thing? It was a Seagull M4
Right.
in spruce, so it looked gorgeous.
Okay.
And I had a go on it, and I thought, put it back and don't buy it. Just calm down. Just for once, exercise some self-control. I mean, there's a lot of interesting NPCs and antagonists potentially in Rackham Vale. Do you have any particular favourites of the ones you've created?
I know Brian's favorite.
Yeah, probably. What's yours?
Oh, I think it's Poigum the Snooger.
Yeah.
So great. Yeah.
Which was yours? This was one that you came up with. I mean, Paul, just so you know, the way that the creative process was we compiled a massive database of art, and then we just sat with it together and separately and saw which pieces of art kind of spoke to us, jumped out like, oh, I know what this, and we'd go off and do a quick little write-up, or in sometimes Craig's case, he'd write an entire short story about the person. And
master of flavor text.
Oh man, I mean, it's just like completely formed great short stories and that were a blast to read. But then I thought, how in the world am I going to get this in? Anyway, so then when we had our initial concepts down, we'd meet and go over them and tweak them and all that. And Poigum is one that was, I think, as far as I can recall, all Craig. As I remember, like we had this super fun piece of art, and we knew we both wanted to use it. And then I think all I did was some window dressing with regard to his feather and all of that. I think the concept was all Craig.
Oh, the feather's great.
So what made you go for old school essentials?
Um, I think two things. One is that uh, this is heavily inspired by the Dolmenwood setting.
Mm.
I love Dolmenwood, and everything that Gavin did with that setting is doing. You know, he's got a lot more in the works. Ever since I came across it, I was just enthralled and couldn't wait to run it. And just the fairy tale tropes, but not just the tropes, but really, it really felt like he'd gotten to the heart of what made fairy tales, especially old fairy tales and folklore, interesting and creepy and weird and dark, but also light and fun and frivolous, and marrying those things up. And so that especially these days when it feels like a lot of the hobby is trending toward kind of edgelord stuff, and you know, how far can they push the dark and the grim and the grisly, a lot of which is great stuff. But I think we wanted to provide an alternative possibility for a setting, a different feel, a place where, yeah, there's all kinds of horrible, nasty ways to die, but there's humor, there's weird wordplay, and capturing the kind of fun, lighthearted, though still dangerous nature of fairy, you know, capital F fairy. And so that was a part of it, because for those that don't know, the guy that wrote it, Dolmenwood, is the guy that wrote Old School Essentials, so it seemed like a natural fit. The other reason is that Old School Essentials is such a clean and easily adapted system. And you know, initially the plan was to have this be a system agnostic setting, to just not deal with lots of stats and just give people fully fleshed out characters in a fully fleshed out setting, and then let them apply whatever stats they thought made sense. But as we got into it, it just felt like it was lacking, like it was going to require too much work on the DM's part. And one of our emphases was utility at the table, and making sure that the book can be run at the table. You don't have to spend hours and hours taking notes in order to be able to run it, or hours and hours prepping and doing, you know, crunchy mechanics adaptation. And so the Old School Essentials, I think, is a great solution for that. I mean, it's got ascending and descending armor classes. It's got THAC0 if you want to use it, but also not. So adapting it to old school systems, or to even modern stuff, everything except, at least the big systems, except for like 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons, it would take some work. But 5th edition's not a great leap. Pathfinder stuff is not a great leap. So that was, it just seemed like a good fit.
Yeah, because it certainly feels very fleshed out and very full, the setting, but you've also deliberately left a bit of wiggle room for GMs to come up with little things here and there, and you've left some things nicely mysterious and nicely vague. So will there be any more additions to Rackham Vale?
There are, well, for starters, there's lots more art. I mean, that we didn't use. I mean, he was so prolific that there's more than enough art to inspire expansions or completely different projects, or, you know, what's happening to the south of this vale. There's, you know, a range of hills with these things in it. So there's no lack of material upon which to draw. What we've been working on is more of a spiritual successor to it, which is taking the concept of using art from an artist catalog that's in the public domain and creating a setting or a supplement based upon it, but using a different artist and a different an entirely different concept, and that it might not actually be a setting. It might be a supplement dealing with a magic system and all that. That one's kind of in the early stages. but I'm certainly open to revisiting Rackham Vale and expanding upon it if it seems like there's people are really enjoying it and there's people want it. I think probably the most likely immediate thing that will happen is a hardcover, full color kind of limited edition version. I mean, it pained us to have to put that art in grayscale to meet the requirements of Zine Quest, and which is one reason why we made the bestiary cards as a supplement in full color, because when you see the art in color, you just, oh man, it's brutal to have to turn it into black and white. You're missing so much. So I've had a lot of people ask about a color version, enough that I think we'll probably go ahead and do at least a limited run of hardcover, full color early next year.
Cool. So before my computer falls over and dies, I just wanted to, you did mention in your email about your DCC campaign that you've been running for a couple of years. So what kind of adventures are you going for with that, and what sort of setting have you got?
Oh, honestly, it started in Dolmenwood. We're using DCC, not Old School Essentials, because I was just fascinated with DCC when I came across it and wanted to run it, but and I didn't set out to do it in Dolmenwood. I just I created a map, a randomly generated map, and then based upon, I did a random roll to see where they end up, where they're going to begin, as a result of this prank sort of pulled on them by this wizard guy. And I happened to roll into the middle of this big forest that I'd created on the map, and I thought, all right, I need to figure out what's in this forest now. And I went looking, and that's when I came across Dolmenwood and thought, okay, this is incredible. I definitely want it to be this. And then that spiraled into, so that started the campaign off on a kind of fairy tale folklore, fairy heavy note. And then the party managed to actually go into fairy and get up to enough problems there that when they came back, they had basically spun the world clock 16,000 years forward through random rolls. I couldn't believe they rolled it. It's like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So that then it became this kind of post-apocalyptic thing, and then they traveled to then they went into the anomalous subsurface environment. If you're aware of that mega dungeon, it's really cool setting. Having nothing, it's for it's an old school module. And it's really cool and bizarre, but it's a little more kind of, fighting weird robots and stuff.
Cool.
And then they managed to transport themselves into the Purple Planet.
Oh yeah.
And got up to all sorts of warlordy kind of stuff there, and then came back and ended up getting more involved in Fae, and then they, not through my railroading them into it, ended up in Rackham Vale. Cool. So it's we've hit almost every note in terms of possible settings.
On the piano, you lay your arms on the piano.
It is that. Yeah, it's an apt analogy, and it feels like my players are doing that often. But I always try to let my players drive the boat, not me.
Cool.
So if I present an opportunity for traveling into fairy and then they take advantage of it, I can't get mad at them for it. I mean, that's if I gave them a magic item that sprouts a beanstalk up into this weird pocket realm where there's these other things going on, and they use it and leave this whole place I'd created, I mean, I can't get mad at them. Like I gave them the thing. So,
cool. Well, I've really enjoyed reading Rackham Vale. It was really good. It's so full of you can just conjure up creatures. I mean, what did I come up with? A sentient mist that can change the order of words that come out of your mouth. I really like that. Just a couple of D20s and you've got something absolutely crazy.
Great.
And the phase settings and the mortal settings that you can conjure up, or settlements, I should say. It's just
the generation tables in the back. Yeah.
But it's full of really rich material, and I can imagine many groups having a great time with this. But thanks very much for having a chat, guys, and I look forward to more of your work in the future.
Thanks so much, Paul, for having us on. Enjoyed it.
Pleasure, guys.
Yeah, great talking with you.
Cool.